In the first part of this short series, I showed you how to take Elementor Pro, JetEngine and JetSmart filters from Crockerblock to build a fully featured listing website. In this second installment, I'll be covering the whole process of creating a custom account section on the site to allow users to upload and add their own content. As a bonus though, not only will they be able to add and upload content, they'll also be able to edit, delete and generally manage all the content they add to the website. Now, if you're concerned, as you should be, with the website being flooded with spam content, you can rest assured that I've got that aspect covered too. For this example, only logged in users with the right user account will be able to add content, and this will still need to be approved by site admins to add an extra level of security. Interested on how to do all of this? Cool, let's take a quick look at the end results and then we'll get started on building everything. So, this is the site we created in the previous video. If you haven't seen that, link in the description. We have a new section called the account section. So we click to go into there. If you're not logged in, you'll be asked to log in. And once you're inside there, you'll see you have the ability to contribute, add extra recipes and so on, and also manage the recipes that you currently have. So what we have on the left-hand side is a really simple setup. Main is going to show you all of your recipes. It's kind of your landing page, but you could set this up to be whatever you wanted it to be. Then we've got user settings. So if you wanted to upload your own profile picture and so on, you could use that inside the design. The add recipe, as its name would suggest, allows us to add all of the various different pieces of information to do with recipes. And you can see if we scroll on through all the same information inside there, including our repeater for added nutritional information and all the different kinds of recipe types. We go into my recipes and it's basically the same as the main section, but like I say, you can set that up however you want. Inside there, you've got each of your individual recipes with a brief overview of the description. Tells you the publication status, whether it's a draft, whether it's published and so on. You can choose to edit this, which will take you into actually edit this particular individual recipe, or you can choose to delete it. If you choose to delete it, you will be given a notification to say, are you sure you want to delete this? At which point you can say yes or okay if you want to, or cancel if you've done it by accident. Hitting the edit option will, again, like I say, take us in now to the same layout as we have with the add recipe, but obviously everything is pre-filled out for the particular recipe that you're currently editing. So that's what we're going to look at creating. Now we've seen the end result. Let's start the tutorial off by enabling the profile builder and the forms function inside JetEngine. So what we're going to do is we're going to come into JetEngine and we're going to go into the JetEngine itself, and inside there we've got all the available modules. We just need to enable the ones we want to use. So we're going to say we want the forms option, and if we scroll down, we also want the profile builder. Hit save on there, and once we've done that, that will then enable those features. With those enabled, if we look at the JetEngine option on the left-hand side, you can see we now have profile builder and forms. If we scroll up, we've also going to go into the skins manager, and inside there, we're going to use these presets. And this allows us to pull in some basic default pages and a basic setup for working with the profile builder. So the first thing we're going to do is say import profile, and we're going to import this option. You can see this uses the preset to create a main, an edit post, and a new post option. We also need to go ahead and just save out the permalink settings, just because there's been some changes made to that. So we're going to click on the permalink settings option. All we need to do is simply come down and say save changes. We don't need to change anything. So we're going to hit save changes on there. We're going to go back into JetEngine and choose the JetEngine option at the top, back into skins manager, back into our presets, and we're going to hit this second option, which is editable user settings page for the user profile. Now, you don't need to do this, but this just gives the contributor the ability to upload their own profile picture, a bio, and any other information you may want to make available. So this can kind of be used then if you wanted to on the recipe details page where it'll show information about the actual author. You know, it's up to you if you want to use that. For this example, we'll just hit on import so you can see how it all includes. So that's all you got to do with that. We click on close and we have set that side of things up. Now behind the scenes, a few things have been done. If we come out to the pages section and open that up, we'll see we've got an account page inside here. So that's the first thing it's done. So we've now created our account page. If we come over into JetEngine and into the forms section and open that up, and you can see we now have edit user, new post, and edit post. So they're the default ones for us. And also if we come into our template section, into saved templates, you'll see we have some new options: edit user, edit post, add post, user post, and so on. So these are automatically created when we use those import options, and it just speeds up the process. It's also a good way that if you're unfamiliar with how to do this, you can kind of use these as the basis to see how everything actually works. With things enabled, we can now set up the basics of the profile builder ready to build our custom user dashboard. So if we come back into JetEngine and we go into the profile builder, we can take a look at the settings we have available to us. We've got lots of options on the left hand side. Our pages is where we can tell it what page we want to use as our account page, our kind of home page. Now by default this uses the account page that was automatically created with that import option, but you can easily change this should you want to. You can also do things like add user pages, single user page, template mode, hide the admin bar, and restrict admin access. What we're going to do though is we're just going to enable the hide admin bar. We don't want that to show up to non-admin users, and restrict admin access. Once we enable that, we can say what user roles we want to allow access. So what we're going to do is we're going to leave that blank because we're going to say anybody other than an administrator, so things like our editors, contributors, authors and so on, they cannot access the dashboard, the admin section of WordPress itself. They can only access the account section which we're going to be creating. So it adds that little level of security so they can't get in and start playing around. However, if they have an administrator role, they have full access to both the account and to the dashboard, so you can still access that yourself. But if you want to change those roles, you can do. You'll see administrator just isn't an option inside there because administrators always have full access. So we'll hit save on there. We'll hop over now into our account page, and in here you can see this now tells us a few different things. So for non-authorized users, what do you want to do? Do you want to redirect them to the default WordPress login page? For now, we'll leave that as it is because we're going to create our custom login page in a moment. Then you can say for users with restricted access. So we're going to set all these things up once we've created all the pages and the templates and so on. But what we have underneath is basically the structure of the account section. So the main is going to be your account page, what you land on when you log into your account. Then you've got things like add new post, edit post, user settings, and so on. So you can, if you want to, open this up and you can see you've got extra options inside here. So we're not going to be using the add new post in this example. So what I can do is I can either choose to delete this completely, which is perfectly fine. You can do that if you want to. However, you may want to set the varying different levels to have different access. So you may have an author that can have access to both the recipe and maybe something like add in posts. It's up to you. You can control that basically through the template you want to reference and also what user roles have access to any of these features. Hope that makes sense. What we're going to do though for this example, just because we want to keep this to only recipes, is just hide this from the menu. We'll do the same. We'll expand out the edit posts and you can see same setup is inside there, and we'll go through all these options when we start to build everything out. We're going to hide that as well. We'll leave the user settings because then they can control their email address and those kinds of things. We'll hit save on there. And then if we go into the advanced section, inside here we can set up post restriction rules. So you may say you only want to allow users to do certain things. It could be something like restrict the number of posts. Well, you can do that inside here. So you may say that as an author, for example, you can add 10 recipes, but as an editor, you could add 20 recipes or unlimited. Well, you can create a new rule. You can choose the role that you want to apply this to. You can choose what post types this rule applies to, and then you can set limits and error messages. So really cool if you want to control how many items any particular user role with any particular post type can actually create. We're not going to worry about this in example though, but it's there should you want to use it. We'll just delete that, say yes, and we'll just save our changes, make sure we've got everything set up. So that's basically the overview of the profile builder. Now, to make our lives just a little bit easier, let's start off by creating the blank templates that we'll later flesh out with the custom forms, listings, and a lot more. So let's hop over into the option for templates and saved templates. Now, it's worth noting at this point, you do not need Elementor Pro to do this because we're only using page templates. You only have to have Elementor Pro if you want to deal with things like single post and things like that. Just so you know that if you are working with a profile builder, you don't need to have that feature or that particular version of Elementor installed. Okay, so we're going to create 3 templates. We're going to come up and add new. We're going to just set this to be a page. And then what we're going to do first of all is we're going to set this up to be list my recipes. And we'll just put template at the end of that so we know what it is. Okay, so there's the first one. We're going to say create template. And once that's done, we're just going to close this editor down and go back. We're going to worry about creating the content later. So we'll hit publish on there and we'll just simply come back out of this, back to our templates, and we're going to create a new template. So We're going to add another one in. So we're going to say add new. Again, set this to be a page. And this one is going to be called edit recipe template. Create our template. Do the same thing again. We'll just publish that and we'll just come back out and do our third and final template file. So again, we'll just hop back out of this, back into our templates, back into add new page. And this is going to be add recipe template. Okay, so that's our third and final template created. Once we've done that, we're ready to move on to the next stage. Now we've finished creating the blank templates, let's go ahead and add those into the profile builder so we can start to build out the basic structure of our custom user dashboard. So what we're going to do is we're going to head back over into JetEngine, into profile builder, and from there we're going to come into the account page. Now inside the account page we can create our extra pages. So first of all, we're going to add in the add recipe page. To do that, we're going to say add a new subpage. We're going to just set the title to add recipe. You can see once we go underneath, that will automatically add the slug in there for us. Then we can choose the template we want to use, which we've just created. So we're going to just type in add, and you can see add recipe template. So we'll select that option inside there. We want to let this be shown inside the menu, so we're not going to worry about hiding that. We are going to say we're going to set some available for user role options though. We're going to open this up. We're going to say administrators, editors, and authors and contributors. So a subscriber won't get access to this, but those roles will get access to it. We'll close that down and we're going to add another subpage in. And this subpage is going to be the option to edit a recipe. So again, we're going to do the same kind of thing, edit recipe. Slug will automatically be created. We'll just type in the word recipe and we see there's edit recipe template. So that's what we want. We're going to choose that option from there. And again, we're going to do the same thing again. Who the roles are going to be used for? We've got administrator, we've got editor, author, and contributor. Okay, so those are the options we want. So we're going to hit save on there. Finally, we can add another page in if you want to. It's up to you how you want to use this main page. So I'll just show you how this is done. So we're just going to add another page in and we're just going to say list my recipes. Same again, template. We're just going to do a search for list and say list my recipe template. There we go. And we're going to set this up to be available for the same roles again. So we just add all those into there. And that's the last subpage created. Now also we can come up to the main page if we want to, and we can change the way this works as well. Now the template for this is set to be the user post. Well, we're going to get rid of that and we're just going to put in list. And we're going to say list my recipe template. So this will show us all our recipes on the home page of our account section. So those are the main things that have been set up for us. Now we're going to hit save on there, and that's all the profile things set up for us. Now, a key part of any dynamic website built with JetEngine are listings. In this section, we'll go through the process of building the recipe listing layout and add in the edit and delete buttons for later use. So to do this, we're going to come into JetEngine and into listings. And inside there, we're going to create a new listing. So we're going to add, so we're going to say post is perfectly fine, but you have other options should you need them. We say post type, we're going to open that up and choose our custom post type that we created in the first video, which is the recipe, which is our custom post type. And we're going to give this a name. So we're just going to call this edit my recipe listing, just so we know what this is all about. We're going to be using Elementor in this example as the editor. So we'll say create our listing item, and that'll take us over into Elementor and we can start building things out. Now, one of the things I like to do whenever I'm working with listing items inside JetEngine is come down to the settings in the bottom left hand corner and come into the listing settings, and then what I do is I set the preview width to be around 450 pixels wide. That's a good indicator of the space that we were working on, and it just makes the whole design process a little easier. You can also set up your listing source. You can see we've got posts, terms, users, repeater fields like we saw when we created this particular listing. But also you can say from post type. Now by default, this probably isn't going to show recipe, which is our custom post type. It will probably show posts. So it makes sense to change this to recipe. So we'll see when we're creating this listing layout, we'll see the data being pulled in from a listing item, from a recipe item. Now, one thing I do want to note at this point is do not click the make listing item clickable at this point. If you're creating a normal normal listing that doesn't have an edit and a delete function, which is what we need to have inside here, then you can enable that perfectly fine. However, if you enable this kind of works against what we're trying to do with the edit and the delete functions. And when you click on either of those, it just literally takes you over to the page showing you the actual recipe itself, which is not what we want to happen. So if you find you experience that, this is probably what you've done. You've accidentally clicked on the make listing item clickable. Leave that set as no. Okay, so with that being done, I'm going to hop back over and we're just going to start building everything out. So we're going to be using all JetEngine features for this. So the first thing we're going to do is grab the dynamic image, drop that into our section, and this is then going to pull in what it considers to be the right image. In this example, is going to be the post thumbnail, which is perfectly fine. That's exactly what we want. Next up, we're going to come down and we're going to select another option, which is going to be dynamic field. We're going to drag and drop that underneath our image. And again, you see this pulls in what it thinks to be the right data. And in this example, it's the title for this particular recipe. And that's perfectly fine. That's exactly what we want. We're going to do the same again. We're going to simply add in another option for a dynamic field underneath our heading. And this time we're going to change this. We don't want to use the source that it thinks we want to use. We want to change this. So we're going to choose the option for metadata, and then we're going to choose the meta field that has the information that we want. In this example is the description field. So we can choose the select option and we can find the recipe custom post type, and we're going to choose description. We'll add that, and you can see that now pulls in the description for this. So we've got the basics inside here. The next thing we're going to do is add the publication status. Now you don't need to add this, but it is quite useful because the way that we're going to be setting up our account and the listings of all the recipes is that you will see all of the recipes you've added, whether they've been set to draft status, published, awaiting approval, any kind of status, but you'll see that status on there. So it's a great way of letting the end user that's actually adding content to your website to see what is the status of their particular post, whatever they're adding in. So once again, we're going to add another dynamic field in. So we're going to drag and drop that underneath there, and we're going to just choose the option. Now, source is perfectly fine because we can use the options inside here. So we're going to open up the object field and change that from title, and we're going to be looking for post status. This is the status of any of the posts that have been added. Now, it's not perfect. As you can see, it just says the word publish for something that's been published. It would make more sense if it said published. However, that's what we're kind of working with. So we kind of work with the content that we have, the features that we have, but at least it gives some information. So how do we actually set this up so it makes a bit more sense for people? Well, the easiest way to do that is to customize the field output. So what we're going to do is we're going to come over to the left-hand side and choose Customize Field Output. And you can see we've got this percentage and the S. This is a macro that's being used inside JetEngine to output the content of, in this example, the source and the object field of post status. We can add on to that if we want to. And for this example, we're going to add in publication status. So now that just makes a little bit more sense. And if we want to, we can also put in HTML code inside here. So we want to make this bold. We can do just that. So we can simply put inside here and we'll just open and close the strong HTML tags. And once we've done that, we'll have that first section in bold and publish in normal case. So that's the first part of that. Okay, so now we're going to add some extra functions in. We need to make sure that this is all going to work with the editing and the deleting side of things. To do that, we're just going to drop in, first of all, a inner section, and this is just going to allow us to have the edit on the one side and the delete on the other to keep them separate and make lives easier. Lots of ways you could do this. This is just a quick and simple way of doing it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select this and we're going to come over to our options for layout, set our column gap to be no gaps. We've got no extra spacing on there that makes it look a bit funky, and we're done with that part. So now we're going to add in, first of all, the very first option, which is the edit option. We're going to add in a dynamic link. So we're going to drag and drop that into there. So let's make this a little bit more usable. Now at the moment it says the source is permalink, but we need to change that. We're going to just open the options up and choose profile page. Once we do that, that now gives us a second set of options. We can choose what profile page we want to link this through to. So we're going to link this to my edit recipe option. Now even though it's a blank template, we'll flesh all that out in a little bit, but we're just basically setting up the link to this. So that's the first part. Second thing is read more makes no sense whatsoever. So we're just going to say edit recipe. And once we've done that, we've now created the first part of it. We now need to tell it how we're going to tell the edit page what actual post to edit or what recipe to edit. To do that, we just choose the option to say add query arguments.
Choose that option, and that automatically pre-fills out this argument, which just basically says the post ID, which is the unique identifier number for every single post, whether it's a post, a recipe, a page, doesn't matter. WordPress treats them all exactly the same. So your post ID is equal to, and again, we're going to be using one of those macros that are part of JetEngine. In this example, it's saying the current ID. So it's going to pass over the current ID for this individual recipe. That's all we really need to do there for it. If you want to, you can set up some icons. So we could say we want to put an edit icon in there. We'll do a little search for edit, choose that option and insert it. And then we can style that if we want to. We can simply come into the style options and we can say, let's just add a little bit of spacing to the side of that. And there we go. So you can do whatever you want now to style this. And I'm not going to worry too much about that aspect of things. I'm sure you're more than comfortable dealing with styling and editing things. Okay, so the edit recipe is in place. The next thing we need to do now is deal with the delete option. So this works in a fairly similar fashion. So we're going to come over and we're going to just do a search for that dynamic link again, and we're going to grab and put that into the right hand section. We're just going to set this to be aligned over to the right. And we're going to do the same kind of thing again. The source is permalink. That's incorrect. We need to open that up. What we're going to choose this time though is delete current post link. So we're going to click on that and say, there's our deletion message, which I showed you earlier on in this video, just to confirm it. And what are you going to do afterwards? Well, we're going to send this back to our account page, our home page for our account. So for that, we're just going to use this simple link, which is /account/. But obviously, if you change yours to something else, you've got a different page set up to your account, just drop the link inside there. What do you want to do after you delete the post? You can move it to the trash or you can delete it permanently. I would suggest leave it moved to trash as it makes a little more sense. Then you've got your label, which we're just going to put in delete recipe, ? And again, if you want to style that, do whatever you want with it. We're also going to add in the query arguments again. We're going to select that. All that's pre-filled out for us. We've had to do nothing else inside there. And again, like I say, if you want to style this and do what you want on there, you can do. But that's pretty much it. We've set up what we need to do now. This is going to delete it or edit it based upon which option we choose. Now what I'm going to do is I'm just going to quickly apply a little bit of styling to this just to make it look a little better. And then we'll crack on with the next step. Okay, so there's all the styling applied to that. So that's that laid out, styled, and everything we need. So we're going to click on update or publish, whichever option you have available to you. So that's that side of things done. So now we need to go ahead and actually start to use these things.
With our listing created, we can now start to build out the first part of our custom dashboard, the post or recipe listing page.
Okay, so let's use this now inside our listing and we can take a look at what things are starting to look like. Let's head back over to our dashboard and back into our templates. So inside our templates, we're going to go into our save templates and we want the option to say list my recipes. Let's edit that with Elementor. Once that's done, we're going to create the basic structure. So we're going to add in a simple 2-column section. We'll select this. We'll also come down to our settings, disable the title, even though that won't actually show up, just makes it a little easier when we're working inside here. What we're going to do is make sure that is selected, come to advanced, and we're just going to add in about 50 pixels top and bottom to give us a bit of breathing room. We'll also grab this and pull this over to about 25%, somewhere around there. Okay, so first thing I want to do is just do a search for listing. And there's our listing grid, so we're going to drag and drop that into there. It says please select a listing, and we're just going to do a search for recipe. And there we go, there's our recipe listing, and edit my recipe listing. We want the edit option, and that shows us the different recipes. We're going to set this to be 2 columns wide. Now at the moment, this is only showing certain things. This is only showing published and it's showing for everybody, which is not what we want to do. So we need to rectify that. Okay, so what we need to do is come down to the post query. We're going to add a new item inside there and we're going to select the type of query we want to create and we're going to set that to be post and author parameters. We'll select that. That now gives us a range of different settings we can tweak to get what we want. So we've got things like get posts with status, publish. Well, we can say we want to set that to any. So it'll show all of the different posts because we've got the status inside there. And you can see once I do that, that now shows me some of the ones that I've been testing out that are set to pending. So that's showing all those things, but it's still showing for every single author. We need to change the posts by author to be current user. So when we log in, we will be the current user. And that's pretty much all we need to do on that front. So that now is going to show us all of the recipes that we have associated with our particular account. Now you can also add extra post parameters on here if you want to. You can stack these on top of each other and just say how you want these to interact with each other. We're just going to keep this fairly straightforward for this example. Now we can come back to the general section and we can just fine tune and configure how this is all going to look. So you can see this is currently showing us 6 posts. We can change that number inside there. We can change any of the different data messages we have for when there's no posts found or anything. We can set things to be masonry grids if we have things that are different sizes. We can lazy load this to make sure that it keeps it nice and smooth, especially when you have more recipes with potentially more images and so on. And then you can just filter all these things and set exactly how you want. So we're going to say load more, and that will just allow us to load more options in, say load more type by click or infinite scroll. Just choose whichever option you actually want to work with. You can also set up your post types inside here if you want to. If you want to be doubly certain you're only going to display the posts that are recipes, well, you could, if you want to, add the recipe option inside here, and that'll only show the recipes. But that's basically our listing side of things. So we're going to update that template. Once we've updated that, now that should be forming part of the homepage. Before we finish this off, we need to add one more section in. So we're going to add in a new widget, and we're just going to do a search, or we're going to come down at least to find the option for profile menu, drag and drop that into there. You can see the content or context is the account, so that's perfectly fine. Show menu for role if you want to set that up, but we've already kind of configured those things inside the actual profile builder itself. Set those to be vertical, and you can see that now drops in all the relevant links for our structure. We'll hit update on there, and now we can test this out. Okay, so this is our account page, and as you can see, there's our navigation down the left-hand side. There's our posts, and if we scroll down, you can see there's 6 posts. We go a little further, you can see it automatically loads in more with that automatic option. So this is just basically using that scroll to load. So there's our account page starting to take shape.
Now we've laid the groundwork, we're ready to start adding the core functions to our dashboard. We'll start off by creating the Add New Recipe form. This will form a key role in our custom dashboard.
We're going to come into JetEngine again, and we're going to come down to the Forms section. Now you can see there's already a couple of forms inside here. There's part of that setup that we've got when we create the profile builder and we import things. We're going to leave those as they are. They're perfectly fine. So let's add a new form in. And this form is going to be our Add New Recipe form. Okay, so if you've never used the forms inside JetEngine before, they're fairly straightforward. They're just a little time consuming to actually create. Now I'm going to go through this section fairly quickly. I'll focus on a few key points and show you some of the key things you need to do. But if you want to see this in more detail, I already have a dedicated tutorial that's based around this recipe website, so you can take a look at that if you'd like me to go into a lot more detail. I will link to that in the description down below, so you can check that out when you're ready. But basically, the forms are broken down into 3 distinct sections: the field settings, the actual action that's going to happen when you submit your form, and then any messages that you want to apply to the various different states of your form. So you can customize all these different messages, your success message, all those kinds of things. You can stack multiple notifications on top of each other. By default, the send email is an option, and we'll go through that in a second once we've gone through and started building out the field settings. So the field settings are basically all of the fields you want to reference or create inside your form. Now, because we're working alongside an existing setup as a custom post type inside JetEngine, what we are going to do is marry up both the forms from those recipes and also the section to deal with the taxonomies, which in this example is going to be the option for the recipe type. So all those are already created. We just now need to duplicate all of those inside here and then link those up to do what we needed to do. Now, it might sound complicated, but like I say, it is fairly straightforward, just a little time consuming. Now, when you create a new form, by default, you're going to have 2 fields in the field setting and 1 notification in the notification section. We have to keep in the post ID and the submit button. They are kind of the basics of what you need, but now we just need to effectively go through and flesh everything out. So to do that, we're just simply going to add in add field. We're going to reposition that where we want, and then we're going to click on the edit option. This then allows us to configure what this particular field inside our form relates to, what we want it to do, and all those kinds of useful things. So the first thing we have inside here is going to be the recipe title. Now, we've got the type, and as you can see, we can choose from all the different kind of field type options we have for custom posts and so on. So what we're going to do is just set this first one to be a text field. Next up, you've got the field type, and you can see we can choose between text, email, URL, telephone, and password. So if you've got some kind of checking that you want to do, for example, it's an email address, you want to confirm it is an email address that's being input, you can choose these kind of field types. We're going to leave this set to text for this one and for everyone inside this particular tutorial, but there are more options should you need them. The name, this is kind of where you want to put the name of the field. Now, I tend to use the same name inside here as I use inside my custom post type, just to make my life easy to know exactly what's linked to what. So let me just show you what I'm talking about. If we hop over into our custom post type list, this is the custom post type we set up previously, which is the recipe. We'll open that up, and inside there's our meta fields. So you can see there's preparation time, cooking time, and so on. We've also got, if we scroll right the way down to the options for advanced settings, we've also got a couple of fields that we're using as part of WordPress itself: the title, the editor, and the thumbnail, and also the excerpt option. Now, the excerpt isn't actually used in this, so I can, if I want to, just delete that. We've got 3 different fields that we're referencing, so we need to put those in alongside our custom meta fields because they're integral to the recipe itself. So the first thing we're going to do is hop back over into our form, and the first one we're going to do is we're going to call this recipe underscore title. Now, I always like to put the name of the actual post type itself if that's relevant inside here, because it means it just makes life a little easier when you're referencing things. You can't have spaces inside here in the name, so make sure you separate those with underscores or dashes. Next up, we've got the label. And for this, we're just going to put in basically the same. This is more of a friendly label that's going to be part of the form itself. So we're just going to say recipe title. If you want to drop a description in, you can do. We'll leave this set as being required because we want to put the title inside there. You can put a placeholder in if you want to. That just fills out some basic info inside the field itself, and it's useful in various different instances. If you don't use labels, it's really, really useful. The default, we're going to leave that as it is, and what we're going to do is don't worry about minimum length, maximum length, and so on. All we want to do is come down and say set the field visibility. This just means that we can add an extra level of error checking with regards to our account, and we're going to set this to be only available for logged in users. So once we do that, if you're logged out and you actually get access to this particular section and you could see this form, then none of the fields that are set up as only for logged in users will show up, and therefore there's nothing much you could really do inside there. So it's just another level of preventing people from causing problems if they get access to this kind of thing. Okay, so that's the first field done. So what we're going to do is we'll hit apply changes on there. And now we're just going to repeat this for all of the other fields inside this setup. So I'm going to go ahead and do that until we get to the point where we're going to deal with the repeater section, and I'll show you how that works. And I'm just literally going to repeat the same process over and over again, linking up, creating the fields, choosing the relevant field type, and then linking them either through to the title, editor, and thumbnail, or the custom meta fields that we've created. So I'll do that and I'll come back to you. Now, while I'm working through things, I thought I'd just pause a second and just show you an extra field type that is worth making note of and how it works. We're setting this up. This is the featured image. So the field type I've set as media because we want to be able to upload images. The name and the label, exactly the same as I've already talked to you about. User access, in this example, we've got a couple of options. We're going to set this to any registered user. So that basically means anyone that's registered and obviously logged in will be able to upload content via this setup. But again, we've set restrictions to who can access add-in recipes in this example anyway. Then we've got the option for insert attachment, and this is going to insert it as an uploaded file. We're going to specify that the field value is the attachment ID so we can reference that later on. Maximum allowed file upload is 1 because obviously you only want to have 1 for the featured image, and we've got a 5 megabyte limit. And also I've set the allowed field types to be JPEGs, GIFs or GIFs, PNGs and bitmap files. I've also set this to be field visibility for only for logged in users. So I wanted to show you that one because I think that's useful and it might cause a little confusion when you're working with this. So again, I'm going to crack on with the rest of these and I'll come back to you then when we're back to the repeater field options. Okay, so now ready to take a look at how we can deal with those repeaters. So all my fields pretty much are in here. So we're going to add another field in. We're going to position that above the submit button. We're going to edit this, and what we're going to do is we're going to set this up to be the start of the repeater. So this works in a little different way to what we've seen before. So let's open this up and say repeatable field group start. We'll click on that. Going to give this a name, which we know is going to be nutrition, which is the name of that particular field group. The label, again, we're going to put this in nutrition and description if we want to put that inside there. Manage repeater item count. We're going to set this to be manually. and the add new label. So what we're going to do is, this is just what you're going to use when someone goes to add something new. Well, let's make it as obvious as possible. Add new nutrition info. We're going to uncheck this from being required because people may not know the nutritional information if they're submitting a recipe, and therefore we don't want to force them into trying to put some false information in. The calculate repeated row value, we're going to click on that. We're going to say default returns rows count. And what we're going to do is we're going to come down and we're going to say this is only for logged in users and hit apply changes. So that's the start of our repeater. So this just says this is now a repeater block, and what we put underneath it is going to be the actual fields inside the repeater itself. So again, we're going to add another field in, move that up. We're going to position this to be about 1/3 because we've got 3 entries inside here. We're just going to drag the right hand handles over, click on edit, and then we're going to start editing this side of things. So what we're going to do is, first of all, we're going to put in the first field that we've got. So we hop back over to our post type, scroll down to our nutrition information, and you can see there's what we have. We have 3 fields: type, value, and percentage of allowance. Let's just expand the first option out, and we're going to copy the name from there so we don't have any mistakes. Hop back over, text is fine, the name, we're just going to drop that inside there, so we'll paste that, and our label is going to be type. Make sure required is unchecked, and make sure we have this set only for logged in users. We'll hit apply changes on there. We'll add another field in, reposition that, resize this like we just did, position that where we want, click on edit, and this time we're going to just change the values inside here for the value option. So we'll do the same again, we'll copy that from there, head back over, field name, the label for this, uncheck required, and set this to be only for logged in users, hit apply. Third and final time, so we're just going to resize this, position it, edit it, change this over to be a number, hop back over here, and if we scroll down, there's our percentage of allowance. Again, you can see this is set as a number, so we're just going to grab that from there, hop back over, put that inside the field name, and we're just going to put percentage of allowance as that option inside there, uncheck required, and set this to be only for logged in users and hit apply. So that's the starting point. So we've got our repeater start, we've got our 3 fields inside our repeater. We now need to add a final field, which we're going to position that, we're going to edit this, and we're going to choose this type to be repeatable field group end. So once we've done that, there's no other options inside there, hit apply changes, and we've now wrapped those 3 repeater fields inside the repeater start and the repeater end. So that's that side of things done. We've got one more field set to put in. So we're going to add one more field in, drag and drop that into position. And what we're going to do with this one is we're going to link this through now to the recipe type, which is a custom taxonomy. I'm going to open this up. We're going to change this then to checkboxes because it's the easiest way to work with these. And we're just going to change this to recipe underscore type, recipe type for the label. And we're going to leave required because you do need to put that in there. And now we need to change the fill options change that from manual input, and we're going to choose the option for terms, because whenever you create a taxonomy, it's grouped together as terms. So there's our terms. Now we can tell it what taxonomy to reference. We're going to click and we're going to choose the option for recipe type. Other than that, there's not much else we need to do. We can just scroll down and set this to be only for logged in users, hit apply changes, and that is our form pretty much done. So now we've built the form, we've got to tell it what we want to do when we hit that submit button. So let's just make sure we save or update our changes just to make sure that all the work we've done so far doesn't go awry if something happens. Okay, so there's our form built. Now we've got our notifications or post submit actions. Now send email is the default. Let's click the edit option and we can change that based upon quite a few different parameters. So the first thing we have is the option for what type of notification or post submit action do you want to carry out. We want to set this to be insert or update post. So we're going to click on that. What post type do you want to insert or update? We're going to change that to recipe, which is our custom post type. And the post status is whenever this is submitted, what do we want to set the post status to be? Now, it depends upon how you want to work with your particular site, but because this would be potentially a public site that could have authors and things like that associated with it, you want to have some semblance of control over what information gets posted on there. So to do that, we can change the post status option, and I would recommend we set that to be either draft or pending review. So we set it to pending review for this example. we can now set up the rest of our form. And what we'll do is we'll set up another action, which will be an email that will notify the admin of the site that there's been a new recipe submitted, and then they'll know they can go in and they can just check, make sure everything is in there correctly, there's no problematic information, and then they can confirm it and make it live on the site. Just as an extra little level of security to make sure you don't get junk being posted on the site. Okay, so now we've got to map the fields to our form. So you can see field maps. This might look a little complicated to start off with, but really it's just another one of those repetitive things you have to do with JetEngine forms. Now, the first thing what we have on here is the post ID. Now, it's worth noting at this point that because we are not updating a post, we have no post ID. This will be generated when we actually submit a new post. So we're not going to put any value inside there. We're going to leave that as select post property. Other than that, though, we just now need to go up and marry all the different fields up. So our recipe title, we're going to click, and we know that's going to be our post title, which is a built-in WordPress feature. Recipe content, again, same thing again, post content. Recipe featured is our featured image, so post thumbnail. And that's the 3 fields that we set up as part of WordPress, as part of our custom post type. The rest of these now are custom meta fields. So now we just need to do the same kind of thing, but reference our custom fields. So first thing is recipe preparation time. We're going to choose that option and say post meta. So anything you create inside a custom post type is a meta field. So we're just referencing that meta field. So what we're going to do is there's our recipe preparation type. And because we copied the name exactly as we have it inside our custom post type, so we scroll back up, there's our preparation time. And if we expand that out, name ID is preparation dash time. What we can do is either copy it from here, or to make our lives just a little easier, we can simply copy it from here. And once we've done that, we can copy and we can paste it into that box, however you want to do it. So I'm going to go through all of these and I'm just going to quickly fill out all this information. Okay, so that's all the post meta fields carried out. You'll notice though that the recipe type, I haven't set anything inside there, and that's because this works slightly differently. This is being pulled in from a custom taxonomy. So nothing complex about this, just worth being aware that it's slightly different. We're going to change this and we're going to say post terms, because if you remember I just said whenever you're dealing with a taxonomy, it's basically referenced as a term. So we're going to choose post terms, and then we can just choose recipe type from the list of options. And make sure you hit apply changes. If you hit apply changes, that will apply those changes to that particular action. If all you do is come up and you hit update or submit or post, whatever the sort of option is on there, that will not save what you set inside there, and you'll have to go through the entire process of doing it all over again. Super frustrating. So just bear that in mind. It's always worth taking your time and making sure you hit that option. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is set up the send email. So we're going to add another notification. And inside here, we're just going to edit this and we're going to set up what we want to do. So the type send email is perfectly fine. Who do you want to mail it to? You can set this to be the admin email, which is the default email as part of WordPress for the admin user, or you can choose various different other options, email from a submitted form field or custom email. We'll leave it as the admin because there's only one admin user. Reply to, what you can do is you can set that and say that's going to be set to a custom email, not selected, blah, blah, blah. This is just a notification email, so there's no real reason to reply to anything from there. Then you can just sort of drop in a subject line. So I would just recommend doing something like this, new recipe submitted for approval. Then you've got things like the from name. So we'll just put in website admin. You can drop in the email address you want to use. I'll just drop in this. And then you've got the option for the content of the email itself. Now you can see we've got all these available macros down the left hand side. It's up to you. You could reference these, drop those in there, style them, do all the formatting, whatever you want to do. It's entirely up to you how you work with it. But those are really, really useful shortcodes. All I'm going to do though is just say, hey admin, there's a new post awaiting your approval. And if I want to, you could put in the post ID and things like that. We'll just leave it as it is for a really simple option, but customize this as you see fit. Again, hit the apply changes to commit those options. Add a new notification, and this time we're going to redirect this now to a different page so we can make sure that this goes somewhere after we've submitted this form. Let's edit this, choose the option to say redirect to page. And where do you want to redirect it to? Well, we wanted to go back to our account page, which will have a listing of all of our posts anyway, but you can set it to whatever page you want to go to. So we say option inside there, we're going to just choose static page, and then we're going to say select the page we want to send this to. We're going to send this to our account page. Now, you've also got these URL query options, arguments, and so on. So if you wanted to, you could pass all these different values, any kind of combination you wanted, through via the URL. So you might want to do the inserted post ID. So you may want to go and have an approval. So this is what you posted or something. You could do that inside here. But again, I want to keep this really simple. I don't want to get too complex with how we're working. We'll hit apply changes on there. I'm going to leave all the messages as they are. But let's just have a quick recap. We've got our form set up to submit a new recipe. So therefore there's no post ID. We've set it up to insert a post. We've mapped all those fields. We've set a send email, so when this form is submitted, an email will be sent to the admin to let them know there's a new recipe. And then we're going to redirect the user who's submitted a new recipe to a specific page. In this example, the account homepage, which will list all of their different recipe posts. Okay, once that's done, we're going to update this, and that now is our form created and everything is set up. We just now need to put this form into the template that allows us to create a new recipe. Okay, so we're back into the templates now from Elementor, and we're going to go into the add recipe template. We'll edit that with Elementor, and then we can set our new template up. We'll create the same 2-column layout, so we're just going to select that option. We'll just quickly set this left-hand column to 25%. Okay, so we'll do like we did before. We're just going to simply find that option for the profile menu, drop that inside there. We'll set this to be vertical. And what we need to do is just find our form now to go into the right hand column. So we'll come back there, we'll search for form, grab our form option, drag that over there, select our form, which is going to be the add recipe form. So we're just going to do search for add new recipe, select that option, and there you can see there's our form inserted into our page. All the relevant different sections, all set up perfectly for us. So we'll hit update on there, and that now is our add new recipe form completed. Let's quickly just take a look at that in our dashboard for our account. Let's just go into add recipe, and there we can see there's our form all set up.
We're now ready to add in the form to allow us to edit any existing recipe post. Thankfully, we don't need to start from scratch, as we'll be reusing most of our add new recipe form.
So we've got the add new recipe. Let's just duplicate it. So we're going to duplicate that option, and we're just going to edit this, and we're just going to change the name. We're going to just say edit recipe. And we'll get rid of the copy inside there. Okay, so the reason we're doing that is because we now have the first part of the form all done for us. But we need to change a few things first. You can see we have an option that says preset form field values. At the moment, this is all a completely new blank form. So if we just use this, we'd have no values inside there, which would make no sense. We need to pre-populate that information to fill out this form with the information for the post that we're currently going to edit. Just going to choose the option to preset form field values. So we'll select that option inside there. And you can see this now looks very, very similar to what we had earlier on, which is where we map all the fields. And in all honesty, it works in pretty much exactly the same way. However, we just need to set a few things up. It says get post ID from current post. Well, we don't know what the current post is even going to be, so we need to change that. To drop that down, we're going to choose the option for URL query variable, because when you click on that option to edit a post, if you remember, we used that little macro that says it's going to transfer over the current post ID. This is where we're going to pull that post ID in that tells WordPress, that tells JetEngine what data to pull in. So that's all we need to do. We haven't had to fill anything out. We're just using all the default values here. So with that being done, I just need to go through the same process now of marrying all these up. But this time the post ID is super useful, and we do need to fill that out. So the first thing I want to show you is post ID. And we're just going to select post ID. So let me quickly recap what's going to happen. The source is a post. So in other words, it's going to look for a post type. It's going to look for the URL query variable, which will be sent over via the URL that's going to be used as part of that edit. Now, all a URL query variable is, in this example, is it's going to pass over the number that's unique to every single post inside your WordPress database. That's all this is doing. And then this is going to look for it, and it's going to filter out just the data for that specific post. Hope that makes sense. You don't need to worry about the technical side of things here. Just wanted to explain it so you kind of know just what's really going on. Okay, so the recipe title we know is going to be post title. We know that the recipe content is going to be post content, and the recipe featured is going to be recipe thumbnail, or post thumbnail, sorry. We're going to jump down to the bottom. We're going to say the recipe type. We're going to expand that out. Let me just pull the screen up a bit. And we'll say post term, and we're going to set that to be recipe type. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to go through and I'm going to just configure all of these again, and I'll come back to you when that's all done. Okay, and there we go. There's all of that pre-filled out. Next up, we need to deal with the actions. So what we're going to do is we're just going to get rid of these options. So we're going to just get rid of both of these. We just want the insert update. So we're going to edit this because we need to make a couple of changes. Most of this information is perfectly fine. The post status is up to you. You could leave this as switching back to pending review, or you can use the option to keep current status when updating a post. I would caution with this, if you do say keep the current status, you need to make sure that you trust the people that are submitting content to your particular site, because the last thing you want to do is them end up putting something in there first of all, then making some changes with some information that you might not want them to have inside there. Okay, so we want to change the post ID, and we're going to set that, say post ID will update post, which is what we wanted to do. So we're going to choose that option inside there. The rest of these are pretty much perfectly fine. So we're going to hit apply changes on there. And now what we have is everything in place. So we can just go back up. We can hit update on there, making sure that everything is laid out the way we want. We'll hit update, and we've now created the edit option. So again, we just need to apply this to the template for the edit post layout. Once again, back into the template section, we're going to edit the recipe, edit recipe template. Bit of a mouthful there. We'll edit that, and what we're going to do is we're going to set this up in the same way as we did before. So we'll just create our 2-column setup, set our column to be 25%. We'll drop a little bit of spacing above and below, 50 pixels. And what we're going to do is we're going to search for the navigation option, profile menu, drop that inside there, set that to be vertical. There we go. And this time we're going to just do a search for form. Drop our form in the right hand side, select our form, and we're going to just do a search for edit. We want edit recipe. We'll hit that and hit update. So now we've created the update option. So the next thing we need to do is test it up and take a look if it's all working. Okay, so we're back into our account dashboard. We're looking at the listing of all of our different posts, and all our different recipes, I should say. And let's take a look. Edit our recipe, which is our fiery chili soup. We'll edit that, and we're going to go over, and there's our fiery chili soup. All the details, images, all the information, including all of our nutritional information, and including the different recipe types. So everything is inside there. If you want to make changes, we can make changes. We can hit submit, and that will make the changes for us. I don't want to, because this is all information I want to keep as it is. But you can see, really, really easy to do. So now we've created the main section. We've got a list of all of our different recipes. We've got the option to delete the recipe, to edit the recipe. We can add new recipes. So we've pretty much done a huge amount of information all set up inside our custom account section. Now, before we wrap this up, there's one more thing I want to do to make it a bit more of a seamless kind of setup, and that is create a custom login page using Elementor Pro. And what we're going to do is we're just going to then use the profile builder to control exactly where people go when they log in. So what we're going to do is we're going to come back over into our site, exit to our dashboard. We're going to come into pages. We're going to add a new page, and we're just going to call this login. So we'll just set that up as login page. We'll publish that, and we'll edit it with Elementor. Now you can set this up to look any way you want. I'm not going to worry about making it look particularly fancy. I just want to show you from a practical point of view. So we'll select this. What we're going to do is we're just going to simply put a bit of spacing above and below like normal, 50 pixels. And we're just going to do a search for login. There we go. There's our login option. We'll drop that widget inside there. We'll set our inputs, we'll change the labels, and we'll just basically say we're pretty much happy with this. We'll just add a little bit of styling to this, and we'll say a border shadow. We'll bump that right the way up. We'll drop the opacity down. There we go. And we'll add a little bit of spacing around that as well. So we'll say, we'll put 50 pixels of padding. Okay, so there's our login section. Now we've done that, we can exit to our dashboard, and what we're going to do is we're going to go back into our profile builder. So we're going to come to JetEngine, into the profile builder, and what we can do now is we can control what happens. So we go to the account page, we can choose for non-authorized users, what do we want to do? So we're going to say redirect to the default WordPress login page. No, we don't want to do that. We're going to say redirect to page. So we're going to select that option, and what page do we want to redirect to? Well, this is our login page. So we're just going to type in login like so. Now this login just basically references the page we just created, which was named login. So that's the link to it. It just ignores whatever URL is before it. So if you move your site, you work on a test site, this is just an easier way. However, you can easily put the full link inside there, including your domain and everything else. Next up, we can choose how we handle anybody with restricted access. So we can choose to either redirect a page or show a template. For ease, I'm just going to redirect them to the same page, which is the login page. But you could redirect them to a page that has a message on it saying you need an account, blah, 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 get them to register, however you want to handle that side of things. But this is just a simple and easy way of setting things up. So with all that being in place, we can hit save on there and our dashboard is pretty much done.
Now that we've created our custom dashboard for our contributors, we have a much more useful custom website, one where we can get other users involved and should help you see the potential in building powerful listing websites with relative ease. Now in the next video in this short series, we'll be expanding on the front end of the website more to add in the ability for site visitors to rate and provide feedback on our recipes, as well as add recipes to their list of favorites. As always, all the applicable links are in the description below, and if you've made it this far in the video, well, why not give that thumbs up button a click? It really does help me out. While you're at it, if you like the content, why not also click the subscribe button, slap the bell icon. But if you didn't get value from this video, well, feel free to hit that thumbs down button twice, as that seems to work pretty well too. My name is Paul C, this is WP Tuts, and until next time, take care.